Hey, it's John Terry, master trainer and coach with Real Life Management. Welcome to Living Real Life. I have on the line with me today, Wayne Nance, the founder of Real Life Management. And this is going to be a very special episode today because we're going to have an opportunity to hear Wayne's story. You know, this is something he's never told in a public setting before. Those of you that have read his books over the years, Thin, Rich, and Happy, Mind Over Money, or The 3-Minute Difference, you've had an opportunity to get some excerpts of Wayne's story. But when we think about all of the things that we teach here at Real Life Management, how to have a thinner waistline, a fatter wallet, better relationships, a more rewarding career, the ability to lead yourself and others well, all of those things go back to our attitude, the lens through which we view the world. You know, Wayne says by the time we're 8 years old, our mind has pretty much been set, kind of like a program in a computer, that people around us have shaped our beliefs, have shaped what we think and believe is true. And because of that, our attitude, our internal hardwiring, and the way that our brain is uniquely put together by our Creator, and the belief systems that we have developed and the people around us in the early formative years in our life have helped shape, influence our choices. And those choices ultimately are played out in the destiny of our lives. You know, I've told my children from the time they were little, life is real simple. There's choices and consequences. We choose the choices of our life, and the consequences of our life happens as a result. And what we teach here at Real Life Management is our attitude, the way we see the world and our view of the world, the beliefs that we have developed in the formative years of our lives. Those things shape our choices. And our choices are really going to play out in the destiny that we shape. You know, you've heard the statistics that we've shared and we've seen really haven't changed over nearly 40 years of clinical research that Real Life Management's put into this. 85% of Americans broke. 2/3 of Americans obese by CDC standards, and over half of all marriages ending in divorce. It's an attitude issue. But the big question that many of us have is, where did this come from? As we think into all of the amazing things that Real Life Management is doing to help people understand the mistakes that they're making in life, how to reshape their choices by understanding their attitude. And as Wayne likes to describe it, altering the slab of their foundational thinking, their attitude and their beliefs, so that they can make better choices that lead to a better destiny. I think it's important for all of us to hear the story of where this came from, to understand the struggles that Wayne himself went through that took him on a quest to find out what was wrong and how to fix it. So Wayne, I'm very excited for us to be able to share your story with our audience today. And I'm going to let you just start wherever you want. So thanks for being willing to do this for us.
Hey, John, thanks for doing this with me. You know, I'm going to take you back to 1957. Now, for the viewers today, most of them weren't born to maybe 2007, but in 1957, I was 7 years old. And most of us, if you think back, it's about 7 years old before we really remember a lot, okay? I don't remember much. I remember that I wanted to go out for baseball. And I remember that my dad took me to tryouts, and I remember I was a very insecure kid. And I was scared to death. And after I decided I wanted to go, I cried because I didn't want to go. And I remember going out to baseball practice, and I was probably one of the worst guys out of about 100 at the tryout. So it was early in life. By 7 years old, I had determined that I probably could fail pretty easily. But before I was 7 years old, because you and I both talk at Real Life Management about hardwiring and softwiring, God gives us our hardwiring at birth. But the first 7 years of life, our parents are the biggest influence, or whoever raises us is the biggest influence on us, and we call that softwiring. Well, during that first 7 years, I did not know it, but I had learned how to be insecure from my mother and my father, because my father, I didn't know at the time in the 50s what it was called, but he was a domestic abuser. Had abused me physically and my mother physically during that first 7 years, but I had blocked it out. Now, when I say he had abused me physically, we're not talking sexually. We're just talking about taking a belt and basically would whip you or beat you until you had blood come to the surface. So we'll call that abuse, okay? And back in those days, he would abuse my mother. I mean, I would hear him hit her or see it. But there was something about that first 7 years, I really blocked it out. I went back later and figured it out, but all I could remember was at 7 years old, wanting to go to baseball practice, but never played baseball. And so when I finally started playing baseball that year, they put me in right field. And I realized that where everybody gets put, if you're not any good, is right field. And so I spent a year or two in right field, and I really enjoyed picking the flowers. I mean, I probably had some nice bouquets that I picked out of the grass while I sat in right field, praying that nobody would hit a ball to me. So basically, baseball started to be my escape, but I wasn't old enough to put it all together. Well, in that home that had abuse, I had learned to become insecure. So now as I went to school and I'm 8 years old or 9 years old, I didn't know the term until recently. It was called bullying. What I thought it was is I was the biggest sissy in the neighborhood. I mean, that was basically what it was. The kids would beat up on me, whether it be at school or they'd catch me at home, and we'd be playing touch football or baseball, and the 3 or 4 of them would gang up on me and just for fun and for laughs beat on me a little bit. But you see, in the 50s, we didn't know what those terms meant, bullying. We didn't know what domestic violence meant. We didn't understand that. I just thought all families had their mother get beat up a little bit, and your dad's supposed to beat you pretty good with that belt. And I thought that, if you're just a sissy, you're going to get beat up in the neighborhood. But I didn't mind getting beat up because they still let me come play. I wanted to be part of the guys. So, John, you think anybody so far can relate to what I'm talking about?
Wayne, I'm thinking back to my own life. When I was 13, my parents relocated from big city Fort Smith, Arkansas to small town Russellville, Arkansas. And, I thought I was going to get a chance to go from being a big city nobody to a small town somebody. And when I got to Russellville, I sure enough became a somebody. I became the target of every bully at school. So, I can relate to that. I didn't have the abuse in the home. I did have a dad that worked a lot growing up in that formative years of my life. Dad worked a full-time job, and Dad was a pastor, and we drove 50 miles one way twice a week for Dad to pastor a church in Oklahoma during the years that I was growing up. And so I didn't see my dad a lot growing up. My dad was not a sports guy. I didn't do sports for the first several years of my life. And I remember trying out for football and didn't have a clue how to play football in the 7th grade, but I thought all the other kids are doing it. Why not me? And I remember trying out for the team, and there were 70 kids or 65 kids on the team. And I think I was number 63 or 64. And we went the whole season, and I finally got to play one game, and they put me in as a linebacker, and I'm like, what is a linebacker do? Let's get in there and hit somebody. And I got in, and I hit one of my own teammates. I didn't realize I was supposed to hit somebody on the other team. So, yeah, I mean, I think we all can relate to this either this bullying story or, the untold story from the 50s and 60s of domestic abuse, and the fact that today that's become much more prevalent and we know what to call it. But you really went through a period of time in your life that it was something that was unspoken. It was something that we didn't talk about.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I started getting fat.
Yeah.
The obesity started during the time of being bullied. I was overweight as a kid. I was insecure. I feared my dad coming home or raising his voice. He was verbally, physically abusive. I noticed that my dad would come home late hours. I didn't realize till I got older that he had a drinking issue going, that he was a spendaholic, spent too much money. He would give my mother just a limited allowance to pay the family bills and keep the rest for himself to go out and do whatever. And then my mother got to where she wouldn't pay the bills on time, and bill collectors were calling, and I would hear my mother going up, lying to the bill collectors, telling them the checks in the mail when I saw the bill still laying on the counter. Learning that, I didn't know what bad credit was, but later in the story I talk about, I'll tell you that they had bad credit. And so basically we had everything going that you would want to have going. We had child abuse, domestic battering, financial abuse, We had bad credit being developed. We had fear in the home. So, and then obesity, because I
So
was
let
turning,
me
I
ask
was
the
turning
question:
to food.
Did obesity become a drug of choice for you at that?
Yes, yes. It was where I went for comfort. As a matter of fact, my mother was obese, and my dad was very thin because he focused on himself and his money. But my mother and I always looked for comfort. And so, and you know, my grandmother and mother back in those days would say, "Here, honey, I fixed your favorite meal. Come eat all you want." Because if they love you, they feed you a lot of stuff. And it was usually a lot of bad stuff, chicken fried. I mean, I remember that one day, you know, we always put bacon grease in everything. We had a can of bacon grease on the stove. And I know the young generation won't relate to this, but older people will. And the day that I saw my mother put the bacon grease in the chocolate pie, I said, I draw the line. You know, we cannot put it in chocolate pie. We put it in all of our vegetables. We put it in all of our potatoes. I don't want it in my chocolate pie. But the point is that we showed love in those days and affection through food, and the more home cooked. And so I got to be a teenager. And by the time I was a teenager, I understood several things. It's normal to have abuse in your home. I remember actually laying in my bed, John, when I was 8, 9, 10 years old, fearful. And I would hear my mother being beat in the next room. I would hear her get slapped, and I would hear her head and her body hit the wall. Now, can you imagine, John, what the fear was in a 7, 8, 9-year-old listening to this and wondering, if I say the wrong thing tomorrow when I come home from school, or I do the wrong thing, am I next? And I was next sometime. And so what I'm saying is, I'm telling this story not to do woe is me. I'm telling this story because a lot of people think that this domestic violence and this obesity and the bullying is like some new 90s, 2000-ish type deal. This is going on a long time, and it's going on in a lot of homes, and nobody's talking about it. And so, John, as I finally got to be, you know, in like high school, I've been an athlete, you know, go back to the right field story where I left off. I become a very good athlete, and I was a good baseball, good football player, and I learned from my early failures how to keep working hard, because my sports became my release. It was where I was comfortable. I wasn't in violence. I could get away from the violence. I could block the violence out. I could get away from the other part of my life and wrap myself up in sports. And that's what I did 12 months out of the year. And I wanted to be the best. I wanted to be the best. And I want you to know that I finally turned the corner and wasn't bullied anymore. Because when I got in high school and saw I was really good playing football, I became the aggressor. I finally took out my aggressions that I had built up, because you build out a lot of aggressive feelings when you're subdued. And I remember I went and told my dad one night when he was going to abuse my mother. I was about 6'1", 230 pounds. I was all muscle. I was a junior in high school. And I saw my dad go to hit my mother. And I remember I went to I grabbed my dad's hand. And I said, "You're not going to do that anymore. We're not going to do that anymore. We're done. You're not going to hit me anymore. You're not going to hit her anymore. Those days are over." And he just stopped and looked at me because he was in shock. But the irony is, John, is after I did that, my mother defended my father.
Yeah.
See, the one
And a
thing
lot in those
about people
situations.
that are
Yeah.
abused, especially women, they will go down defending, whether it's your daddy or it's their, you know, their husband or whoever that is. They will defend them. And this is the people that, this is what's sad about this thing about attitude, John. They will defend them even at the expense of their child or community or whatever. So, John, what happened is I became a very good athlete, had a lot of football scholarship opportunities, a lot of different opportunities to play, opportunity to play minor league baseball. Was never good enough to be a professional baseball player, but could have played in the minor leagues. Had an opportunity. But what I did, John, is I screwed up. I screwed up. I had carried all of that abuse and all of that dysfunctional forward, and I started turning down offers Matter of fact, I went to my dad and I said, Dad, I have a chance to go to the Air Force Academy and on a full ride and a track scholarship because I threw a shot put. I was a good shot putter. And I never forget my dad, and before I finished the story, I said, Dad, I've got 4 or 5 letters here from major colleges I want to show you, D1 schools. My dad wasn't into sports. He didn't know what a D1 school was. And he didn't go to college. He went to a business school for a while. And he said to me, I'll never forget, he said, that is child's play. That is child's play. You need to get a job and go to work. You do not need to go to the Air Force Academy or take those football scholarships. Now, the reason I tell you the story, John, and I want people to know the story, is that is what I call a lack of support from the family. Okay? So it starts out innocent. It starts out with a little beating here, a little abuse here. Then it turns to where they don't want you educated because education is dangerous. You with me, John?
Yeah.
You get too educated, you become too smart and you control your own life, okay? So as I went through these stages, I turned down some of those offers. I was kind of buying into it. Well, luckily, I had a few people that I respected that came to my aid and said, hey, I think you should go in the financial business. So I went to college for a while, and then I went in the financial business and became very successful in the financial business by all standards. But here was the problem, John. I never could shake the background because once I got in the financial business, I started running my credit card debt up. I never beat my children or my wife because I didn't believe in that. But there were times I was verbally abusive.
So you went back into the very pattern of behavior like you talk about and like we talk about in real life. What you experienced in your formative years ultimately began to shape who you were. And as a result of that, later on in life, especially when stress came into play, that began to manifest how you live life.
Yeah, I was verbally abusive at times to my wife and children. I was 3 to 4 credit cards in debt. I was unhappy. I was miserable really with life. But in terms of the public's view of me, I was very successful. I had a Mercedes. Back in the early 80s, I had the $300,000 house. I was making, big income. I was on different boards, councils, school boards. You follow me?
Yeah, so you had all of the trappings out on the outside of success.
Yes.
But on the inside, you're still messed up, screwed up. All of the attitude issues and all of the past coming back and playing itself over again in the future.
So I started drinking too much. I never did drugs, really, just drinking. I mean, drinking, see, you got to remember, today's world, if you just have 5 or 6 Crown Royals, you're okay. But if you do cocaine, you're bad. Well, the truth is, you're pretty messed up if you drink 5 or 6 Crowns, okay? Or whatever it is. So I was drinking too much because I wasn't happy. And I was still trying to be that 7-year-old accepted child when I was 40 years old, okay? And so matter of fact, I wrote my first book right on the heels of all of this, okay? So I was a successful financial executive. I was a successful leader in my community. I was a well-published author, and I had all my baggage. And so one day, John, here's the culmination. One day, I just couldn't do it anymore. And I come home to my big house, and I crawled up in my closet, in my master closet, in a fetal position, and I cried. I said, I can't do it. I don't know who I am, but I can't do it. I can't live up to this image that I have because I'm still a 7-year-old hurting child.
And is that when you went on the exploration to try to fix yourself?
That is when I started going to a psychologist who specialized in abuse and stress, family abuse, alcohol, drugs, whatever. And I spent several years with him talking about who I was and who I wanted to be. And he later became a very good friend. And John, he became such a good friend. We wrote my first book together. Dr. Edward Charlesworth, super person. And this book was When Does Enough Money Buy You Happiness? That's what Mind Over Money was about, is how much money does it take to really make you happy? And this was the first piece, John, of my story of recovery. So I wanted people, now, you know, I know on these podcasts, everybody's got one nowadays, and you got dancing bears and sports and all kinds of stuff. There are a lot of people who won't care about this story or ever see this story, but I thought this story was important because people have heard me speak around the country over the years, or seen me, or seen my books, or taken my survey, the Army for 7 years. The irony, John, is that one of the reasons I wanted to work with the Army so bad between 2010 and 17 was that they have rampant abuse among their families. They have domestic violence, sexual assault, drug and alcohol issues, financial devastation. And I wanted to use our survey to help them with our research around the world, identify these people so we could get help for them. And that was really our goal, and we were very successful at it. And I think the Army, if you ask them, will tell you that we were successful if you talk to the right people. I had to go to the Pentagon and talk about this. This is not just a military issue, this is a society issue, John. And I think that what I decided about 1995, 45 years old, I left the financial industry because I said, I really want to talk about these issues. I want to talk about this. And I later started a company called Real Life Management within a year of that time of leaving the financial industry. And I had a very good financial practice. I just couldn't do it anymore. I emotionally couldn't do it anymore. I'd spent 40-something years talking to people about their finances. And guess what, John? They still struggle 40 years later because they're not listening because of their attitudes.
Yeah.
85% aren't listening. And so I started Real Life Management. And this is why I started Real Life Management. I thought there was some child out there today, then, tomorrow, that is bullied. There is somebody beating their wife. There is somebody beating a Wayne Nance when they're a kid. There is somebody that's taking the money and spending it and leaving the wife to be sitting home without resources financially. There is somebody out there drinking and drugging because they can't get rid of their pain. I wanted Real Life Management to be a beacon or a light for people, that they could come to this company and talk to me or you or others like you about their life. And we could use our 3-minute survey and our materials that we developed to show them who they are and what their attitude slab of life is, and to stop their abuse, to show them that you can break the cycle. Nobody bullied me anymore, John, after I got old enough and understood. Nobody beat me anymore, and I don't beat my family. Never did. That was one thing I was never going to do. Sometimes I was verbally abusive, but I'd never lay a hand on them. I learned better, as they say in East Texas. I'm not broke financially, but I'm not as rich as I could be, John, because I changed my priority. My priority was not to be a multi-millionaire. My priority was to put resources back into this organization to help people not be Wayne Nance when they grow up. So I thought it was important that I talk about this story, because this is not a pretty story that you want to tell. You know, people don't like to talk about this. I think that every time I would do a speech anywhere around the country, I would go out and say, hi, I'm Wayne Nance. I'm from a dysfunctional family in East Texas. And if anybody watching this has ever heard me speak, that's my opening. Now, what I never told them is, what did that mean? I just said, I'm Wayne Nance from a dysfunctional family in East Texas. Now, that's the kind of words that we use and the clinicians use today to tell people that they have a tough family is dysfunctional family. I didn't know we were a dysfunctional family. I just knew we were screwed up, okay? But I knew we were screwed up after I got a little older, because it was normal. It was my normal, you know? I mean, I used to eat fried Spam and pinto beans just about every meal. I didn't know till I got older you shouldn't even be eating that stuff. Beans are fine, but fried Spam is not good every day, okay, for you diet-wise. So if you don't know what you don't know. How many times have we said that? I didn't know I was from a screwed up family. I didn't know I was screwed up. I just thought everybody ate Spam and everybody got their mama beat up. And that everybody got bullied and everybody's supposed to be broke and your daddy's supposed to come home late drunk. I just thought that's the way the world was. So I think the reason for this video is to let people know there's hope. There is hope. Real life management. I'm 69. I may not be here in a year. I may not be here in 10 years. I may not be here in 5 years. But John, the reason for real life management and having quality people like yourself that are younger than me come on board is to say that we want to go find that next Wayne Nance and help him or her before they're 7 years old. We want to help them. John, I talked to a young lady last year that was raped, gang raped by her daddy and his drunk buddies at 3 years old. Now, most people don't get to hear that kind of stuff, do they?
That's right. Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, I don't want this video to be depressing for people. I want this video to be hope. I want people to understand, why is there a real life management? Why did he work with the Army 7 years on suicide, sexual assault, domestic violence? John, as you know, one of my biggest things right now is school shootings, protecting school. And we have research now, John, that says that we can help with school shootings. We can help in the home. We can help with suicide. But we've got to get people to stop, look at our survey situation, look at our research with us, take our survey, and understand that just because you've gone through it, you're not ruined for life. God didn't make no junk. And there's always a great opportunity for all of us. And that's what I want the story to be about, and that's what I want real life management to be about.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things I like about real life management, and I've been involved with you, Wayne, since probably 2007, I think is when we met. I was speaking at a conference in Chicago, as were you, and we had a chance to connect because we were both part of the same venue. And that's really taken us on a journey together. And one of the things I've appreciated about real life management is the fact that this is an organization that wants to help people really do what the name of this organization says. How to learn not just to live life. And most people live life by default, and they don't realize that they can have real life. And if they understand what we teach and they're willing to work with a coach that's trained in the real life management system and how to be able to help you have a better relationship, how to manage your money better, how to make better food and wellness choices, how to have a more rewarding career, understanding all of that can really help an individual that's struggling in different areas of their lives begin to see success. And I think that's one of the things that so excites me about what we do every single day is we have an opportunity to have conversations with a Wayne Nance that is struggling with obesity issues, or to talk with someone else that's struggling with financial issues, or to have a conversation with somebody that's dealing with domestic violence and doesn't know where to turn. You know, in my background as a martial arts instructor, I've had an opportunity to travel and was inducted into 2 Martial Arts Hall of Fame for my work in predator awareness, predator safety, and rape and assault prevention with elementary, junior high, high school kids, and speaking to high school and college adult females in helping raise the awareness of how they could potentially put themselves more at risk and how to become situationally aware. But a lot of this comes back to, and I want to go back to what you said earlier, in the formative years of your life, that first 7 to 8 years as your hardwiring that's God-given at birth, and then the soft wiring that we get from our parents and others that influence and shape our beliefs, that became your worldview. And that worldview carried forward into your life for years. And it affected the choices that you made. Going back to what you talked about with, you had an opportunity to go to Division I schools and play ball. And your dad, who really capped and put a lid on your opportunities to grow and see success in the sports world, really was shaped by those early 7 to 8 years. And you didn't know that this wasn't normal. How many people are going through life today that don't realize that the world that they're in, that they think is normal, isn't really normal? It's life, but
Yep.
not real life.
It is, John. And,
Yeah.
and what's bad, John, is families develop an IQ. And what I mean by that is when I got in the financial business and I told my mother and dad I was going in the financial business, and I'll never forget, my mother said, I can't believe you're going into financial business. Nobody that we've ever met in the financial business is worth a darn. So basically the first thing they said is, you're not worth anything if you go in the financial business, okay? Well, I'd gotten to be 320 pounds, John. I kept eating because that was one of my addictions, right? I was not only drinking too much when I was financial business, I was eating too much. I got up to 320 pounds. So I said to my mother one day, I said, Mother, I'm going to try to lose 100 pounds. You know what my mother said? She said, I don't think you can do it. Everybody in our family's been fat. Okay, so my mother wanted me to understand the family IQ was that we've all been fat. I said, Mother, I want you to know that I've been trying to really monitor my money and put money away and really doing well. And she said, well, I don't understand that. She said, everybody in our family's been broke. How's that, John?
Yeah.
Everybody in our family's been fat. Everybody's been broke. And remember, I did go to college, but they didn't want me to, okay? And so they wanted me to be fat, broke, and stupid because my mother said nobody in our family's ever gone to college. So does that make sense that families develop an IQ?
Yes, absolutely.
Fat, broke, and stupid.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be that way.
They develop, I call it a culture. They develop a culture. And this is how we've lived. We've always been this way. It's like the comical story that I tell many times when I'm speaking about real life. And I talk about the guy one day that his wife was getting ready to put the ham in the stove, and she cut the end of the ham off. And he asked her, why do you cut the end of the ham off? She says, I don't know. Mom always did it that way. Mom, why do you cut the end of the ham off? I don't know. Grandma always did it that way.
Well, it's back to the bacon grease. They always put it in our food.
Yeah, so they go to grandma and says, why did you always cut the end off? Well, I don't know. Great grandma did it. So they go to visit great grandma in the nursing home, and she's in her 90s. And they said, great grandma, why did you always cut the end off the ham before you put the ham in the oven? And she looked at him and she smiled and she says, my oven was so small the whole ham wouldn't fit in 2 parts. And this line of thinking has now gone down 4 generations. How many of us have these attitudes, these cultural things that we believe our family's always been fat, our family's always been broke, family never has good relationships? That's what we're tackling here at Real Life.
I know, John. I know. And I guess what I'm saying is we have to stop the insanity. John, there's one last thing I want to tell you. It broke my heart. The last part. This broke my heart more than any of my story, more than my own abuse growing up. Between 2010 and 2017, we had contracts with the Army to do research around the world on suicide, sexual assault, and domestic violence. And I found out my daughter, who was working for me, I found out she was raped. During the time I'm doing all the research, right? She's sitting in the same office with me. She didn't want me to know. One, she knew what I would do. Now, John, I just leaned back in my chair, and you're not supposed to do that when you make a video, but I couldn't help my body language, okay? She knew if I would have found out, it would not have been pretty. But the reason I bring this up is that was kind of the last blow for me that made me understand the importance of real life management.
Yeah. When you think into the fact that people are hurting, and as we're shooting this video right now, we're dealing with the coronavirus issue, and people are worried about losing their job. There's no groceries on the shelves. All the medicines, the ibuprofen, the Tylenol, all that's gone. Fear's running rampant today. But I mean, this is just a short-term thing we're going to get through. But when we get back to what we call normal in America, we're still not normal in America, because we still got abuse that's going on behind the scenes.
And it's going to be worse during the virus.
It's going to be worse during the virus, absolutely. But we've still got people that are dealing with domestic violence. We've got people that, they feed their kids just like they fed themselves. And we got fat people making fat children because of a mindset that they have that this is normal for us.
We're cutting the end off the ham, John.
Yeah. People that don't interact, they live their lives on these little devices. A lot of issues going on. But I think what you've said today has been valuable. There are a lot of Wayne Nances in the world, and there may be some Wayne Nances today that are watching this podcast that can relate to your story, can relate to the fact that maybe it was domestic violence for them, or maybe it's alcohol abuse for them. Maybe it's food that is their drug of choice. Maybe it's limited thinking that their parents put into their mind, and the fact that they don't believe that they have value as an individual. That's what we speak to here at Real Life every single day. Our opportunity to help people have a better outcome in life by understanding who they are, taking our 3-minute survey to understand how God has uniquely hardwired them, but then also to understand the soft wiring that shaped their belief systems and how we can help them alter their attitude and reshape their beliefs that can cause them to see and make choices that they didn't believe they could make. There's extreme value in that. And I think this is a message that when people hear it, they're going to respond.
John, I've made a lot of training videos.
Yep.
I don't mean to interrupt you, and pardon me for that, but I made a lot of training videos and traveled around the country, around the world doing speeches over the years. There's nothing more important I want the public to hear me say than the video today. If I could take away every speech I've ever done and every book I've ever written, everything I've ever done for notoriety of any kind, I would give it all up if somebody would listen to this video today or watch this video. I know this video has been long, and I know the attention span of Americans is about 30 seconds to a minute. But whether they see this in clips or see it in its entirety, John, for all the people that are struggling in the world, and it's over half of us. If you just take money, health, relationships, bullying, you take all that stuff. Over half of Americans and half of people around the world are going to relate to what I talked about today and my story. It is my wish while I'm still alive or after I'm not here that everybody gets to see this at some point in time. Not for my ego, not for us to make a ton of money, but for them to understand that there are people that appear to be so successful in life, that behind the curtain there's a lot more to the story, and that I can relate to them and they can relate to me. And the good news is, John, there's help. At Real Life Management, before it was a company, I used all the tools for myself. Everything we teach people today, I was my first customer. Dr. Edward Charlesworth had a lot to do with that and his advice to me. The logs of 91 days that we keep, the survey that we use to analyze. I was my first customer, John. The good news is there's help for people. And I might add, without medication. I'm not a fan of psychological medications for children or adults, because I think our attitude is the problem. And there's never been a medicine that will overcome our attitudes. But once our attitudes and our belief system are in line, we can do great things. By the way, for those of you that are watching this today that want to know about spiritual, I tell people all the time that if you don't have a good spiritual foundation in your life, I'm a Christian, but if you don't have a good spiritual foundation in your life, real life can only do so much for you. But with that, and a lot of help from the man upstairs, everything's possible. So that's what I hope will happen with this, John, at some point.
Absolutely. Wayne, I want to end this just by saying thank you for sharing your story. There's a lot of hope there. I mean, if you look at Wayne today, he's not 320 pounds anymore. He doesn't have credit card debt anymore. But the neat thing I like about what we've done, and Wayne, I've been working with this organization since 2007, is I think to the tens of thousands of lives that we've had an opportunity to speak into. And the situations that you and I together and individually and the other coaches that we have over the years that have had an opportunity to help people understand who they are, how they were uniquely put together by their creator, but more importantly, how to reshape their thinking through understanding their attitude and how their attitude shapes their beliefs and how that shapes their choices that leads to their destiny. There's huge opportunity for improvement in all of us. But we can enjoy real life if we're willing to invest in ourselves.
Reallifemanagement.com, reallifeattitude.com, John.
Exactly. I want to leave you with this. If you want to understand who you are and really find a starting point to living real life, let me encourage you to do one thing, and that's to invest $20 in yourself. You can go to reallifemanagement.com or reallifeattitude.com, and you can take the 3-minute survey. You're going to receive a report that's going to tell you a lot about you, and you're going to discover things about yourself that I like to say is kind of that aha light bulb moment that all of a sudden you realize, oh, that's why I do that. But you're also going to learn things about yourself that can help you improve. When you understand what causes you to get stressed and you can learn to recognize that as it's beginning to happen, now you can begin to reshape the choices you're making so you don't automatically, when you're stressed, go to the Twinkies, go to the Mountain Dew, go to the alcohol, go to the drugs, go to beating your wife or spending money on a credit card. Whatever it is that you do to find release, you begin to recognize those things as something that you can change. Something you can alter is the word that we like to use here at Real Life Management. And when you do that, your world begins to change. So let me encourage you, invest $20 in yourself. Go to reallifemanagement.com or reallifeattitude.com and take our 3-minute survey. Hey, we'd love an opportunity to hear from you. If you're on our Facebook page, Real Life Management has a Facebook page, and we would love to have you follow us on Facebook. We post several times during the week. We share articles and current events that are going on, and we speak to those from a real life perspective. The podcast, videos, and other things that we do here as a company, trainings that we're going to be offering, are going to be posted on our Facebook page as well. So let me encourage you to go look us up, facebook.com/Real Life Management. You can just search Real Life Management on Facebook, find us, like us, and follow us, and you can have an opportunity to keep up and to listen to and be the first to know what's happening at Real Life. If we're going to be speaking or doing an event in your area, we'd love for you to be the first to know and to help us to invite people to learn how to live real life.
John?
Hey, Terry. Yeah, Wayne, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Do we have an email address or two we want to share with them if they have a question or something they want to?
I would say the easiest way to do it is just to have them go to the Facebook page.
Okay.
Because we've got people around the world that may be watching this. And in certain countries, email works sometimes and sometimes it doesn't.
That'll be fine.
Interestingly enough, they can all get on Facebook. So if you get on our Facebook page, you can instant message us there as well and be able to communicate with us, and we can immediately respond back to you. But anyway, Wayne, I want to thank you again for telling your story and really being transparent, and the fact that you've been genuine and honest with your own struggles and your own concerns. And I love the fact that you have been able to demonstrate that we can overcome what's going on in our past and we can have a better tomorrow. And as we learn to live real life, we can become a better version of who we are every single day. And when we do that, not only does our world change, the world to the people around us change too.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for sharing.